for physical fitness. For your higher PE exam, you need to have an understanding of different approaches for each factor, and you need to be able to name them. You also need to be able to describe those approaches. You need to be able to explain why you selected those approaches, and you need to be able to analyse or evaluate their effectiveness. Remember, when we're talking about approaches, we're talking about ways to develop each factor, and in this case today we're talking about types of training. Today we're going to look at the physical factor, and we're going to focus specifically on physical fitness. So we're going to look at some approaches to develop speed and some approaches to develop CRE or stamina. The three approaches that we're going to look at is continuous training, fartlek training, and interval training. The first one we're going to look at is continuous training, and this can be used to develop CRE or stamina. This is training which is continuous, i.e. it doesn't stop, and we're going to try and go at a continuous pace for at least 20 minutes. It needs to be minimum of 20 minutes to develop CRE. We also need to make sure that our heart rate is in the training zone. When we carry out these approaches, we need to wear a heart rate monitor, and we want our heart rate to be at 60 to 80% of our maximum. And for someone your age, that's around 125 to 168 beats per minute. Here's an example of continuous training. So as you can see here, the performer is running continuously around a box of yellow cones, and they're running at a continuous pace. Now, when they get back to the start, they will have completed one lap, and as long as they know the distance between the cones, they can then work out their total number of laps and the total distance covered in this session. Remember, we're going to do this for at least 20 minutes, and we want our heart rate to be in our training zone. A good way of recording your distance here would be to use an app such as Strava or Map My Run, and it's really important that we measure out the distance between these cones so we know how far we have run in that 20-minute period. So as you can see, running continuously without stopping. We're now going to look at fartlek training. Fartlek is a Swedish word which means speed play. Again, this is an approach which is used to develop CRE or stamina. This is training which involves a change of pace. So you would start by jogging, you would then increase the speed to running, you would then increase the speed again to a sprint, and then you would walk. And you would repeat that again for 20 minutes, and we want our heart rate to be in our training zone, 60 to 80% of our maximum, and you would need to wear a heart rate monitor. We're now going to look at an example of what that looks like in practice. So we start off by jogging, and then when we get to the top, we're then going to increase the speed to a run, and then we're going to sprint as fast as we can, and then you get a walk to recover. Again, you would need to know the distance of the cones. When you set out your box here, you would want to probably have a distance of about 25 meters per cone, and you would want to use some sort of app to track your distance. So we're jogging, and then we're going to run a bit quicker, and then we're going to sprint again, and then we're going to walk back to the start, and you would repeat this process over and over. It's quite good when describing, if you have a look at the picture on screen, to describe 4 different coloured cones. So for example, if we started at the red cone, you could then say I jogged to the yellow cone. From the yellow cone, I then ran, so I increased my speed up to a run to the orange cone. When I got to the orange cone, I sprinted to the blue, and then I walked from the blue back to the red. Something like that helps you to be a bit more descriptive and paint the picture more for the marker. Okay, the last approach that we're going to look at is interval training, and this can be used to develop speed. Now, interval training is training where you work really hard at a high intensity and then you get a long period of rest. It's really important here that your work to rest ratio is about 1 to 3 if we're trying to develop speed. So what I mean by that is you work for, say, 10 seconds and then you're getting 40 seconds rest, so you get a lot more time to recover, and then you would repeat that process. The intensity of work here is high, so we're looking to be about 80 to 100% of our maximum, and it's really important that we get enough rest so that we're developing speed. Again, your session here would be around 20 minutes, and we need to make sure that our heart rate is getting high when we're working, up to about 180 beats per minute plus, ideally. Here's an example of interval training to develop sprinting. So we're running as fast as we can from a set of cones, and then we're going to slow down and we're going to slowly walk back. So it's an active recovery, and we would time this recovery so we get plenty of time for our heart rate to come back down. When we get down to the bottom, we're then going to sprint again. So it's a really high intense period of work, and then we get a long rest to develop speed. This could also be done in the swimming pool by swimming lengths. So you would swim as fast as you can, and then you would get a long recovery, and then you would swim as fast as you can. Here we can see the performer sprinting all the way through and then repeating that process. So we're now going to talk about how you would describe these approaches. Well, we need to give the marker an understanding of how you carry these approaches out, where we did it, what we did, and we want to try and use short, sharp sentences to really paint the picture of what we did. On screen just now is an example of a description of Fartlek training. Pause the video here to have a look at this. This was an approach that we completed on our school's AstroTurf. And this is an example for continuous training. Again, pause the video here to read this in more detail. This is an example for swimming. So why might we use these approaches? Well, this allows us to work on our fitness, our CRE, away from the activity. If we were a swimmer, for example, we could do it out with the pool, or we could do it in the activity. It's similar to a game, things like fartlek training, which have got a change of pace. All of these approaches are easy to adapt, so it's easy to make them harder, or equally, if we weren't seeing progress during our PDP, we could adapt them and make them easier. Ways in which we would do that would be to increase the time or decrease the time. With fartlek training, we could take out the rest, or we could have more sprints within the box. You can make the distance of the cones bigger. We can do it for longer. So there's lots of different ways that we can adapt these sessions. I can keep track of my distance, so I can use this as a method of monitoring. So over a period of time, I can see, am I managing to run further? Is my CRE improving? We can also measure our heart rate here, again as a method of monitoring. We can check to see what's happening to our heart rate. Are we actually managing to work at 60 to 80% of our maximum? Are we working hard enough? And then lastly, it's very easy to set these approaches up, and we don't need much equipment. We can do this on the grass, we can do it on the AstroTurf, and equally we can do it in the swimming pool. So here's an example of explaining why we selected this approach. So we're going to make our point, we're then going to give an example, and then we're going to give an explanation. I chose to use fartlek training as it was appropriate for my activity. For example, as a football player, fartlek training is similar to a game of football, as you're constantly moving at different speeds. This means I can develop my CRE in a way which is similar to my sport and relevant to my position as a midfielder, as I need to be able to jog, sprint and run without stopping. Second point, I chose to use fartlek training as it was easily adaptable. So for example, as my PDP progresses, I can make changes to the session, such as increasing the time from 30 to 35 minutes, or by removing the walking section to make the session harder. This means as my fitness level improves, I can make the approach more challenging to ensure that I continually progress. Now, you may be asked to analyse the effectiveness of this approach, and what you're going to have to do here is think about the conditions that you used to set it up and then break it down into its important parts, or you may be asked to evaluate its effectiveness. Now, here we need to give a judgment, and then we need to give the evidence and the impact that that has. So, for example, fartlek training can be ineffective if you train with a partner who's not as fit as you. This means that they'll tire easily and you won't be as motivated to push yourself. This could also mean that your training partner cannot keep up and won't push you to run as far during each session, which means you won't improve your level of CRE. And then similar to the last one that we just looked at, fartlek training is effective as it's relevant to my sport. For example, I play as a centre midfielder in football, and this position requires me to move at different paces continuously for 90 minutes. This means that fartlek training allows me to replicate a football game where I'm changing paces and working on my CRE level. I hope you found this video useful. There's more content like this on my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.